Welcome, everybody, to episode 41 of How to Become a Sales Warrior. I'm your host, Eddie Pods, co-host
Mark Simpson.
Where are you from, Mark?
Sim Holdings.
Sim Holdings.
That's correct.
All right. Who's our special guest today?
Special guest is a friend of mine, Rocco Dano, in the security business, BrookHill Security. Looking forward to hearing what he's got. He's kind of interesting journey, is kind of grinding his way through up the ladder on that business.
The grind. We know
it's
the
all
grind.
about the grind.
So well, that's for sure. All right. Why are we here? Tell Rocco and everybody else why we're here.
Well, we've said this several times, but we're grinders, and we've made lots of mistakes along the way. And this is ultimately about a sales podcast, sales, how to be successful as a sales warrior. I wrote a whole book about this. You are the ultimate networker, grinder, and whatnot. And if we can share some of those tips from experiences and, more importantly, mistakes that have been learned along the way, we have a good time just talking about it, sharing it with the youth.
Awesome. Good. You know, I start Mondays off with a sports moment.
Do we have to?
No.
Do we
So I'm going to give you hope. We're going to skip over the sports moment, but I have a gift for you. I was in the city because I'm a sponsor of the New York City Wine and Food Festival, and I'm standing on the line for a nice tequila drink, and I see the Ranger thing there, and I said, "Hey, can I have that?" And the girl walks away, and I'm like, turn to my wife, I'm like, I guess that's a no. She walked around to talk to somebody else and then said, sure, give it to him. And I'm like, I know Mark is a Ranger fan.
Mark is a Ranger fan. In this foreign land of Long Island, I didn't know there were Islander fans, but yes, a diehard Ranger fan.
Well, there you go. That's a gift for me.
Appreciate that.
All right. So I've had a really extensive journey the past 9 days being on the road, actually almost 10 days. I like to choose a word, from my past week's experience that the word's humble. That's my word of the day, humble. I walked with my head high, my shoulders back for 8 days of travel, conference, trade show, big event, and I enjoyed every moment. I let it just come to me. I didn't think it through. I didn't overanalyze it. Just appreciated what I had at the moment.
Let me ask you something. Would you be, with you 20 years ago, how would you be humble 20 years ago?
No. I was wilder, bigger mouth, no muffle.
So when you say humble now, what does that mean to you?
That means that I keep my negative thoughts and stupid thoughts in my head. I enjoy the people I'm with. I surround myself with people I want to be around, and I have no angst or agita around me.
I think that's an important, they always say as you get older, you kind of change and I don't want to say soften up, but you evolve.
You evolve. I like that word.
Right?
Better.
You evolve. And I think when you talk about being humble, it's so critical and important because you get so worked up. There's so many things you get worked up about in this world, right? And you realize, okay, let me appreciate some of these things.
Exactly.
And if you have that humility and humbleness, I think that starts to go a long way, and hopefully we'll start to see a change in society a little bit.
I hope so. So chapter 10 in the book, How to Become a Sales Warrior, right there on the desk. It's about conferences. It's about associations and organizations being part of it. And one of the things I took out of the book in the action statement, the first thing I took out of it was I was at a conference and I decided to do something different, and I listened to every guest speaker. I wrote their name down, I wrote their title down, and I filled the book. They always have a book on the table with pens for everyone. I actually used it. It didn't become a door stopper. I actually opened it up and I started to write everyone's information down, just for the sake of writing it. Not so much to remember it, but to write it, get myself familiar with their names. Who are they? And by the end of this conference, I'll be able to figure out what they really meant to this conference and how do we work together. So, taking those notes while you're sitting there instead of staring at your phone.
See, every time you say stuff like this, I'm so impressed with it because, and again, I've tried to evolve, but you are the that type of behavior is so wonderful and so rare to find. If you were talking to a 21-year-old kid that was going to the first trade show, they would have no clue. They'd be bright-eyed. But that type of guidance is so valuable, and people don't realize that.
And the action statement for joining an association, join. get involved.
Don't just join, pay your
involved.
fee, actually do something with that. And you know, I'll say where, you know, you are in a bunch, I don't even know how many organizations you're in.
At the moment, only a few. I've trimmed it down.
Because and I try to practice what we preach with the Comac Chamber, with Huga, and a couple other organizations I'm involved in now. That, you know, you don't want to just pay your membership fee. You want to basically make a difference.
Make a difference. So I wrote a new card for conference, and the reason I did that was, and I wrote here for everyone to hear: be the man, create something new. What the hell is he talking about? When you go to these conferences, you get emails to be a sponsor. Pay $5 grand, $4 grand, you get to do this, you get to do this. When I asked my boss about it, he said, are you going to get a speaking part, or am I just paying cash to have the word pods on the wall?
Fair.
And back to the guy, he said, yeah, pods on the wall, no speaking. And I'm like, I'm out. But I planted a seed after the last conference that I wanted to get involved in the event committee. Long story short, I created a cornhole tournament during a happy hour at a luxurious homes. It's Avenue. It's just this beautiful development in Philadelphia. Here's what I did. I went out and purchased a cornhole set. I sent it to my printer, and I had the word pods written down the middle of the cornhole. The bags, they all said pods. There were 36 people at this event. I signed up 34 of them to participate in a round-robin cornhole tournament. And it was just counting points. It wasn't competing against each other. In the first 2 rounds, it was just counting points to eliminate 50% of the people there. Got down to the last 8, turned out we got down to the last 3, and 3 people were flinging at the same time. The crowd that gathered, everybody was there. Everybody was part of it. The winner, I donated a bottle of Woodford.
Right.
He could have the Woodford, or he could have the cornhole set. Either one. The guy who won takes the bourbon. Come on, let's go. Let's crack this baby open. Turned out he was someone in an organization I was trying to meet that I could never get through the door. Here I am giving him a bottle of bourbon.
So he turns out to be someone who is somebody.
Turns out to be somebody who's somebody, but they gave me a round of applause the next day at the conference.
Right.
They said, let's all thank Eddie from Pods for running that amazing cornhole tournament. And I'm not bringing it up to brag. I'm bringing it up because one of your guests, Joe, said either you're all in or you're not.
Keep going back to that. Yep.
But sometimes you don't have the money for all in.
Yep.
So instead of spending $4,000, I spent $220 on the set, the printing, and the bourbon.
You just hit on something else. Even Rocco can probably attest to this too. You're right. A lot of times that whole thing where you can't go all in because you just don't have the capital to do that,
right,
and have that creative thinking from a marketing, networking standpoint, that is a true skill, and that's a missing skill that we see a lot in today's world. Showing up at these conferences and it just says pods, okay, but now you've created a whole thing, and if you just expanded your network by 34
Here's the best part. We charged everyone $5 a head to participate. Donation for charity.
Right.
We raised $212.
Right.
And I was collecting the money. I was doing everything. I didn't know until the day before that 2 days before that I was actually doing it. The point of it is, outside the box, I figured out a way to get some sponsorship without paying big dollars. Everyone loved it. I mean, normally when we do these group events, there's usually, some people over there that aren't participating. I literally walked up to every single person. It's your turn to toss, $5. And they're like, oh, yeah, come on. And I just egged everyone on to get involved. And it was so much fun. Everyone was and when we came down to the final round with the last 3 people there, everybody was cheering it every time one got on.
Yep.
So conferences can be really valuable, and you don't have to spend a fortune.
Right.
Join the event committee. Come up with an idea. Be creative.
I was just in a conference in New Orleans a couple weeks ago.
How was it?
Well, I have the Ed on my shoulder. Don't just show up. So what I'd say, it's a job, man.
Hell yeah.
These conferences, especially in the security space, are overwhelming. It's GSX, so overwhelming. You can walk, for days in the booths, and these people that go all in, they're spending $100,000, $150,000.
Yeah.
But my point is, there's 1,000 booths, and you're getting scanned at 100 of them, it's a project, and you come back and you bring a bunch of data and whatnot, but you make it a real valuable exercise to attend these shows.
So funny what you hit on, because we're gonna go into tequila time, and you're gonna love what I have in tequila time, because you just said one of it. So we'll be right back. We'll bring our guest Rocco out. See you in a few. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 41 of How to Become a Sales Warrior. I'm your host, Eddie Pods, co-host
Mark Simpson from Sim Holdings.
Sim Holdings. You're going to introduce your guest today.
This is our guest, my buddy, our friend, Rocco Dano from BrookHill Security. Brookside, sorry, wrong. BrookHill Security. Rocco, happy to join us. I appreciate you taking the time. Look forward to hearing your story, because it's kind of interesting, especially as a guy that comes out of the security space. And let's get into it.
We're going to jump into tequila time. And Rocco, tequila time is about the old and new, what we do in business, how we do it, what I did 20 years ago to what I'm doing now. What are we doing different? So first, we'll do a little toast. Mark is going to go water.
I got to do water today. My apologies.
You get the pirate. You get the pirate.
Honored.
To the old and new.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. So before we went to commercial break, you were talking about being scanned. I went to the trade show fully prepared to get a lead scanner. When I went to do it, the app wasn't working. They said, you got to go upstairs to the booth. Conference was starting in 15 minutes.
What was it, like to scan the
barcode?
badge? Right.
So I ran to my booth, finished setting up. I turn around, there's 10 people already at my booth. I'm not going anywhere. So it was only 3.5 hour viewing on Sunday, so I couldn't go anywhere. So I was like trying so hard to get people's information. Give me your card. You get the, I don't carry a card. I don't carry a card, I was pissed. I did well. When I came down the next morning, I ran over there, got my lead scanner. What a difference. What a difference.
Is it like a gun or something?
No, it's on your phone now.
Oh, okay.
It's on your phone. It's an app. It's real simple. You're engaging with people. When you go to, can I have your card, you're making them do something. They don't want to do anything.
People, but honestly, do you even carry cards now?
Me personally, no.
This was a franchise show, so a lot of them had it, but it's making them do something that they really aren't in the mood to do.
Lead scanner?
It's an app on your phone, and you get a tag, and it's got a QR code.
You wear usually a lanyard that's got like a QR code. And
address, phone number, everything.
Right.
When you're having that engaging conversation, you say, do you mind if I scan you? Oh, yeah, sure. That is so much easier than, you got to, exactly. And the difference between the two is huge. So don't cheap out. I paid $278 to use something for 3 hours, but I got 35 leads on there, all their information, ready to go. And I was able to download it the next day into a nice spreadsheet for me so I could follow up. So lead scanners, stop just trying to chase the business card. It's not worth it.
Fair enough. I don't even carry business cards anymore.
A lot of people have the digital ones, which
I have the digital ones, yeah.
They're funky because sometimes you forget to save it.
Yeah,
there's a couple of steps you have to do.
It gets lost too.
It gets lost.
To your desk, you could shuffle through a card.
Yeah,
do that.
LinkedIn scan code is the one that doesn't get lost, which is pretty cool. And if you never use it, I'll show you how to use it. But it creates a QR code for you, or the opportunity to scan someone else's QR code. So you kind of look cool by showing them how to do it. And they're like, oh, I never knew that. And like. And don't let them scan you. You scan them, because you don't want to wait for them to call you. You want to have their information.
I mean, I sometimes do. I call right then and there. Put it right in the phone. So I know you're not giving the wrong number.
Yeah. All right. Text, hey, this is it.
We're going to get into networking tip. So I was in Nashville on my own, two-day trade show. This organization called Neighborly. They own 19 brands, over 500 franchises in total. A lot of different. I was there specifically to go after Rainbow Restoration, because they told me they wouldn't do business with me unless I did. So I did. That was really great. But my tip, my networking tip, is get to know your neighbors. Neighbors? Yeah, the people that are going to be next to you for the next 2 days, weathering the storm of all the people, not having lunch while everyone else is having, your neighbors. And I say that because my neighbor, Rico, great guy, happens to work for an electrical supply company that is nationwide. And it turns out that they're having logistical problems. And they're having on-site storage problems. And he had no idea that pods could work in the commercial space. No idea.
They handle logistical problems.
Right.
And we spent 45 minutes talking. He said, my boss is going to be here tomorrow. You are a solution that I know is going to help us in the next 6 months. I mean, I just see it. I said, listen, I'll fly down to North Carolina to HQ. I'll bring my boss too, just so your boss and my boss have someone to talk to. And we'll figure out what we can do. And that doesn't happen unless you get to know your neighbors. What's your networking tip?
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Be prepared. My networking tip is, what would Ed do?
No, I like that. I do. Because I think these things through.
Look, in fairness, my personality, and I am not the overly extroverted person. So for me, when I have to go to a trade show, it's more like, okay, I got to be prepared.
Right.
And probably I'm not that different from a lot of people. I don't call it, social anxiety or whatever you want to call it. But in essence, I think when you're going to a networking event, be prepared to network. We've said this before. I don't mean to be repetitive, but it's a really good saying. Be uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so if that means going up to a bunch of different booths, giving your card, talking to some people, I think the key is it's almost like sports. Get involved right away. Like if you're playing football, you want to get that first hit. I feel like you got to get into the show.
Yep.
Start talking right away because you got to want to, and you probably know better than me, but build that momentum and you're like, okay, you know what? It's a 4-hour sprint or 5-hour sprint of just talking to people and go from there. So be prepared, be aggressive.
It's funny, I was stayed at the Gaylord in Nashville, so you know the place pretty well. There's only one place to get coffee. There's only one Starbucks, and there's only 3 people working, 20 people online, and literally the guy standing behind a guy, and I see his tag, and I'm like, yo, you're a vendor. He goes, yeah, what's going on? We talk. We went out and sat down and had breakfast together because we were both just coffee and a Danish, going to go sit for a few minutes. That's a guy I just met.
I have a question for you, not to veer, but do you find networking, and this is relevant, do you find networking in Long Island different than networking in other parts of the country?
Yeah. People here are a little bit more arrogant. Okay. A little more. I don't really
standoffish, maybe.
Yeah, I don't like the way you look. I don't want to talk to you.
It's very true. But we go back to the point of this podcast. It's, would you say harder to network here, and as a business owner, it's harder to do it here. And when they say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. But I find in different parts of the country there is a bit of a friendlier vibe and a more welcoming vibe. And in New York, it's like, what are you looking at?
What's your networking tip?
You got to keep an open mind. Listen, there's 2 things I can piggyback off of both of you, but one of it, I'm extroverted in it. Specific situation, right?
Gotcha.
I'm not a networker for the most part, and we have people within the company who are networkers.
Gotcha.
So when I go to a networking event, I try my hardest to keep that open mind. Where you said something about being arrogant. I wouldn't say I'm arrogant, but I'm saying more or less to the fact of like, okay, I want to go in, kind of want to see what's going on, and then I just want to leave. But we had a previous event a couple weeks ago, and I kept an open mind, and it actually led to a lot of good things. How I follow up on that's a different story.
Oh
but,
that's next episode.
That's a whole other thing there. But yeah, I think you keep the open mind, especially if you're in a position of that. I think for the owners and the operators, it's a little different for the networking because we're not. Our focus isn't just networking, especially if you have a team of people to help you with that.
Right.
So I think for me, that's where it's a little different there. But yeah, I mean, you just go in there. You never know who you're going to talk to, and you don't judge a book by its cover. That's part of keeping that open.
Yeah.
And the reason you don't judge a book by its cover is because you don't know who's in their Rolodex.
No, and I tell you what, especially now, this day and age, it's not about the suit and tie anymore, and you never know.
You don't know who the CEO is.
Oh, no. Look, if we didn't have you and I wouldn't be sitting here right now,
no, that's
right?
True. Yeah.
And now we've become business colleagues through just informal relationship.
Yeah.
All right, best business decision of the week. So I gave up 8 days of my family to go to Philadelphia, to go to Nashville, to plant my 4th quarter and 1st quarter seats. That was a smart decision. I just need to do it. So now after my next trip in November, I have nothing until February of 2026. So I put my time in. I planted big, huge seeds in the past 8 days, and it's going to carry me into the new year. So that's what my best business decision of the week. Big win was. No, business decision.
Either one.
Either one.
They all kind of tie together.
Sometimes.
So you know what? I'll say business decision, win, or whatnot. I'm going to use the word patience. We've said this before, but I don't think I've ever said this. Do you? What SEM stands for?
No, I have no idea.
Stephen, Esri, Matt, and Mark, the initial investors of SEM.
Okay, did not know
I wish
that.
it would be like a more, but
We got to hang a sign.
yeah, so it's SEM. There you go. Stephen, Esri, Matt, and Mark. Anyway, when you start a business, as you know, it is hard. And you can basically go down a path, right? And there's various decision points that you can make. You could go this way, you could go that way. And the path is littered with
Landmines.
drops. Yes. And so, SEM, we're going on to 5 years. And we're just about closing another financing facility to put us into a position where, you know what? We're either going to be a real company if that's sustainable for several years. We've gotten past the hurdles and the hump, and having that patience, because it is hard, man. When you have to make payroll and you're stressed and revenue isn't what you think, it is hard. But getting through that is a very gratifying feeling. So having that patience is the best business decision and win, I would say.
Awesome. What about you? This week, last week?
Yeah, I mean, business decision is constantly always just go for it, right? Because there's a lot of hurdles, especially when you're a smaller company, and it's all relative to a degree. But when you're smaller and you're trying to grow and take the next step, and you're working with your own capital, whatever it is, sometimes it's hard to turn around and just say, "I got to do it." And I think for us this week, we had one of our employees come to us, and they're relocating and moving, and it's a very, very important employee to the business. So would I have taken that next step? If that didn't happen, I don't know. But so I think just doing it, just getting.
So is he staying with the business?
We're going to put him in a remote position.
Right, and so 5 years ago, it'd probably be something that you'd be like, all right, no way, and I'm paying this guy money, and you got to trust him, right? Yep.
Can I jump in? Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you introduce me to him? He could use a pod to move.
They're always sales slash networking.
There you go.
Well, there's my friend needs an alarm system upgrade too. So
This is why we do things. I heard moving. That's what I do.
Yeah, no, so that's huge. That's absolutely huge.
So the big win for me, I know I already let it out. It was meeting that electrical company, but then when I came home, I had I had about 10 rainbow restoration business cards, and I went into my system, and none of them were in the system, which is good for me. I went and created new accounts for all 10. I went and ran quotes for them based on where their office is. And I'd never done it this way before, but because they will ask, what kind of discounts am I getting? What are you up to? So I sent them a quote. Here's what the prices look like. And I know I'm 20% less than my website, so I know they're good prices. But I was willing to put it in my introduction email. Hey, it was great to see you at the show. Just wanted to give you a little outline of what we charge for and what the prices look like, being transparent. And I got 10 of those out, and I already got 2 hits back today. And this was from the weekend.
Right.
So, it's winning, man. It's like I was ecstatic when I got the email.
Right.
Yeah, all right, we're rolling.
There you go.
Big win.
Listen, I'm going to piggyback. So as of probably Wednesday this week, we're closing our own official line of credit, which is outside capital. Not to talk like a finance guy, but for every now and then, when you're growing, you have a choice to do equity or debt. And if you can obviously keep the equity, that's more value, but we've got a line of credit coming in place. And when you're going through this business process, you get used to hearing no, and no, and no, especially when it comes to raising money. No. And when you're actually able to close it is it's hard, it's painful, but it's pressure. So, but we're closing our biggest line of credit, our biggest financing that we've closed to date this week. So that's a big deal for us.
Thanks, how much?
No.
I love numbers. He knows that. I'm all about the numbers.
I would give you numbers, but I think some other people
maybe
might
not on a recorded camera.
Exactly.
What about you? Big win of the week?
Big win. Mine goes back a couple weeks. We found 2 very good new employees for us. So one joined the sales team. Another one came in as a field technician. So for me, not necessarily monetary, value, but
wins aren't about money.
But right on a deal, because we we get great deals all the time with great customers. But yeah, the team members are
and it's got to be hard, especially in Long Island, building a business with employees and having good employees and affordable employees is a very complicated situation.
It just takes. It's funny because I was talking to somebody on the way here. It's trying to be a business owner and an entrepreneur is different than you trying to be, have a glorified job. And being an entrepreneur, it is not. It's everyone says it, but it's not for the weak. It's
hell no.
It is the hardest thing.
You almost hear the story of I leveraged up to my eyeballs. Yeah. I almost lost my house. I did this, and this. It is hard, man. Yeah. It's really hard, and you got to have balls to do it. Yeah.
And on all this, I love the breaking points. The 5 years, the 10 years.
Yep.
Let me tell you, it comes in waves. And the bigger you are, the bigger you get. The more leverage the more leveraged you are. Listen, you have billion-dollar companies, $100 million companies that go out, right? It's just leverage. It's a game of leverage.
Right, and quite frankly, it's getting comfortable how to use that leverage. That's private equity as a whole. Yeah. It's how do you use the leverage to basically, build your equity.
Absolutely.
So how did you become this entrepreneur? Where does it start?
It started, I would say, early teens, maybe even before that. I don't know. I can't really remember. But for me, it was I was never really academically strong, so to speak. So I never liked school. So I knew college for me was out right away. When I turned 16, I asked my father if I could drop out of high school. He said no. So that was out. So we kept that going. But I was always dabbling. I could never hold a job, right? Because either I just saw something or I just didn't. It was a clashing, right? It was maybe an ego thing at the time. Who knows? But
or ADD. No.
Yeah. No. That. Well, what they said that, but that's actually a good thing we can talk about.
Yeah.
But that's here. But I think for me it was I always did something on the side or I had something going on. So I had an entertainment company that I officially incorporated. My first official corporation. That was 16 or 17 or something like that. And I was DJing small stuff. My mom owned a child's party place, like for little girls. They'd come in and like a kids' day spot.
Yeah. Right.
And I was DJing for these little kids, playing like Miley Cyrus and shit.
Hey, listen.
and from there,
party in the USA.
It evolved, right? So we talked networking, right? That was like a networking because then people would come in and say, oh, I have an older son or daughter, and do you do that and that? So it kind of evolved from there. I was still in high school, so fast forward to 18, come graduation. It was always, go to college, you go this, I was involved in, certain sports and stuff, but again, that never worked out either because I just never liked being told what to do. So wrestling was a big one for me because they were like, oh, we'll get you into this college for wrestling. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm not going to college. So fast forward, went to trade school. I feel like that
and honestly,
trade school.
Yeah,
so I went to Electric Training Center, ETC, right in Copeg.
Yeah.
So I went there, became very good friends with the owner, Sal. And we were just, whatever. It worked out, right? Because it was kind of hands-on. It was good stuff. So we graduated from there. Then I took a job with a security company. And from the security company, I was just like, yep, again, couldn't hold another job because I was not, saw potential.
Weren't good employee material?
Yeah. But I was also, when I was there, though, I was present. So like
you were absorbing.
There was no, right, but there was, I also cared like it was my own company. Whether I always showed up, 20, 30 minutes before. It was always, I remember in the security company, I was working with him for 3 months. I'm 19 years old. One of his youngest techs, he bought me a truck 3 months in. I said to him, well, hate to break it to you, but I'm out of here next month.
Oh, jeez.
But, I was always there, right? It was never lacking. I was never, hurting someone's business. It just didn't work for me. Then fast forward from there, at this point, I had my own company, which at the time was actually called Safe Action Security. So that was in 2015. And then, I still needed some sort of cash, right, to keep me going. At this time, I didn't have the entertainment company anymore. So I got rid of that. And actually, the guy who I would MC, he would kind of like sub me out to MC for him because I love having a great time. And he actually bought pretty much everything from me. So I kind of made a few bucks too, which is cool. It was like an very, very entry-level acquisition.
It's awesome.
Like something to learn. So that was that. And then that evolved, and I worked in a union for about a year because my uncle was the president. And
Electrical?
Again, no, it was 137 sheet metal workers. So I went from there.
So you went from electrical to sheet metal?
Well, it really was more or less the fact of just the money part of it, right? Maybe make some more money to help me grow the business.
Right, because you and unfortunately the way it works, unless you have it all, you have to still
and that's
fund
the
your
thing. So
lifestyle.
got bills to pay.
a lot of exactly, and that's a lot of the things that a lot of new entrepreneurs. You have to sometimes drop the ego too to get in that space, right? I didn't want to work there, but I knew that would help me build up more of my personal capital if I did it correctly and put it into the business. So then, fast forward into a year or two, year and a half after that. I wound up getting into a car accident where we were T-boned and all that, and actually put me out of work. And it wasn't work related, so it was two separate things, and I just couldn't work. So I was like, you know what, physically, because it was a lot of overhead stuff and whatever. So I went through therapy. I'm good now, thank God. But we went through that, and then that gave me the push, complacency. We were talking about before, right? To get out of the complacency, because being in the union could get you a little complacent where
Because it's not bad
we're
money.
gonna have that as a side piece, right? We're gonna have that, it's gonna make it, the fun money. But then it gave me the push, because I was like, all right, well, now I have to do that. And I taught myself a lot. Listen, I don't come from a background of entrepreneurs, so to speak. I don't come from I wasn't impoverished growing up, right? We grew up on Long Island and had a great life and family. Parents split up at a young age. That's fine. But I think the biggest part, I taught myself a lot on sales. I failed a lot, right? I failed miserably. Like there's times where, you try to read a book and do this. At the end of the day, it's real life experience that's going to teach you.
So when did BrookHill actually start?
So then fast forward, so BrookHill, it was always there, right? But the name BrookHill came about in about 2019. 2019 was when I did an official name change. And I said, you know what, I want something a little bit more professional, and I want to build a brand that people will know, so it doesn't have to say what it is. And that's what we're working on now.
Is Brooke your wife or daughter?
No,
Okay.
no. It's actually the street I grew up on was Sunnybrook. So I said, all right, Brooke. And then I figured at that time we were very high we were in residential. It was very hilly. So I'm like, hey, BrookHill, and that's just how it evolved. I don't know, it worked.
And you said, let's start a business right before we go into COVID.
And that's it. Yeah. Well, the business was there, but yes, you're right. I actually, one of the hardest times, and surprisingly, COVID was a great year, for me. But,
Sure was.
Yeah, it was.
Me too.
It was, and but I think it was exactly it. I never look at the times. I just take what it has to offer, right? But I don't get scared by it.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting, and this is the so. First of all, your background's I find that very interesting, and I have a ton of respect for what you're doing, especially knowing your business. So, and you mentioned that you're kind of an extrovert, not the most outgoing person, right? And then you worked in...
It's situational.
Yeah, situational, but you worked in a union, sheet metal union. And then you go start a business, and you said that you failed in sales.
Yeah.
When did you because part of being an entrepreneur, in fairness, is you're selling.
That's it.
Right? Yeah. So how did that work where you became, you realized, okay, you have BrookHill, right? And you're selling security, you're selling commercial, residential security jobs.
Well, I think when you're starting out and you don't have a team, right? It was me. I was solo. And I had technicians. I always had guys because I had part-time guys, and actually, fast forward a little while, wound up hiring some guys from my old company, and they actually worked with me, and they retired with me. And, that was that. But being, I think, the startup of an entrepreneur, and then seeing where you want to be and then seeing where you are is a big smack in the face. And you have so many hats that you're wearing. You have a sales, you have an operations hat, you have a project management hat, you have the networking hat, you have all these hats, the accounting hats, all that stuff. And we have a mutual friend, with the accountant, and he was a big help because, accountants can be expensive. So he was a very big help in that part of the business. So that was thankful.
Yeah, Matty Gruberger, Freeport Tax. Matt's the best.
Yeah, he is the best, Matt. That's a shout out. He came to my wedding, so
there you go.
known him for a while. But yeah, and so I failed in the sense of because you can only give so much attention to things. I was always good at sales, so to speak, right? Because I always kept the lights on, and that's kind of my argument when I hire somebody new. You
never missed
business.
you never missed the payroll, right?
No, it's gotten close.
Yeah.
But there's also things, so that's really important you say that, though, because over time, as the business grew, I became better at certain things. And I also recognized, and a lot of people don't do this, you have to recognize your weaknesses because you are not good at everything. I don't care who you are. If you think you're good at
this book would have helped you in the beginning of your journey.
Yeah.
Because it's got my entrepreneur failure right in there because I didn't know how to wear all the hats. I couldn't wear all the hats. I wasn't good at wearing all the hats, and that was part of the reason I failed.
Yeah, well, we're not supposed to, though. And I think that's why teams are important. With those at first.
And I look at, and I hate saying that I feel older, but whatever. I see where you're at today, and I think that when you talk about being open, there's probably so much knowledge that can be imparted on you today that when you look back 5 years from now, oh shit, I was really screwing that up what I was doing. And I think the fact that being open to it now is going to help the business flourish down the road.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is ego, right? Especially when you're young 20s, mid 20s.
That's fair.
No, it is. It's a big problem because I was like, I have a business, meanwhile, I'm like, two guys, a couple techs,
right, and you're struggling to make payroll, right?
But it's like that feeling, and then as you realize, now you fast forward to now when you have a handful of people and teams and real, infrastructure to actually maintain. Your own ego actually winds up smacking you in the face, and you're like, "Hey, how you doing now, big guy?" And
so, how did you meet Mark?
So I met Mark. So it's like two ways. So. I have Steve Shalansky. He's a part of our company, and he comes from the industry. And he made an introduction with me and Mark, and then it's also because Matt Gruberger. Actually, we were talking, and
is he your accountant too?
He's the accountant. So we're talking, and he's like, one day I'm sitting in there. He's like, you really got to meet this guy, Mark. And I'm just like, Mark. He's like, yeah, he's been in the alarm business and blah blah. I'm like, Mark Simpson? Yeah, is that the Mark you're talking about? He's like, yeah. So it was kind of like a two-way connection there. And it's funny because how long me and Matt knew each other, and never to think to bring that up. So
yeah, I go back with Matt. Yeah, we were just saying probably 25 years.
And he known me since I came out of my mother. So
that I didn't know. Okay.
Well, now you do. But that's a big thing. So yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. There's a lot of wisdom, and I think.
Do you have any coaching? Do you have anyone coaching you?
I have. I don't know if I call them coaches, but they're definitely mentors to me. They're
and if we say, I think Shalansky's probably a very valuable resource. He's been around. He's got a lot of experience.
But I think personally too, I've evolved as a person, not just as a business owner, right? Because I have a kind of a corny saying, you have to love yourself before anyone can love you.
Sure, of course.
And I think that plays in a lot of different ways though, because even like focusing on the business, listen, I was in a long-term relationship, got out of that, and that kind of messed me up a little bit in the mix of COVID and the mix of growing the business. So there's a lot going on there, and you got to find yourself. You want to be a great entrepreneur, you have to find yourself. And you said something important too when I was sitting over there. Actually, being humble. You have to be humble because you'll never know. Listen, that door can kick me in the ass tomorrow. And
100%.
you never know, and you're gonna have to come back. But yeah, I think mentor coach wise, I do have some people, a friend of mine who's got a very successful roofing company, and at this point in time owns about half of Key West, I'd say. But it's relationships like that it's not necessarily just about the business part of it. It's more or less to be a better person for, and then that just evolves from there. So many things come from that people don't realize.
Good karma, baby. Good karma.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because there's a saying, when people used to say, "Oh, it's just business."
Yeah.
But just because it's business doesn't mean you need to be an asshole. And
sure.
right. Sure. And they say, "Oh, it's business." That's fine.
Well, if you correct me if I'm wrong, I think that what I've seen over time, the people, young or old, if they were the ones that changed the footprint or they came up with real struggle because no one really gave it to them, they are the nicest people.
Appreciative, understand.
They still cut business, right? Hey, this is business, but there's a difference there. And then the guys and the kids that are passed down from generation to generation, or you have trust fund kids, they are the cockiest assholes. Let's be honest.
No, they are.
It's true.
That is
and
true.
there's no talking to them.
It is truly a different struggle. But no, look, I sit here listening to your story, and I can't help but reflect and think, oh man, and listen, part of it I'm excited for you because I think the future is bright, but part of it I feel for you because, like I said, there's no struggle. Like the biggest stress for me is when it's Wednesday and payroll's due Friday,
that's my
and you don't have an answer.
Yeah. And well, because the thing is, Mark, you can push your rent. You can push your phone bill.
You can't push your payroll.
You can't push payroll. People aren't going to stick around.
To get paid.
And the thing is, all the stress that you can feel is not for them to feel.
No, you still have to come in with a smile.
Yeah, you can't whine and bitch.
That's right.
Listen, you got to understand.
No,
I don't. You're the boss.
And for anybody who has that type of situation, when you go through that, that's the biggest thing because your financial struggle or stress, you don't want to let that fall over to the employee.
And you also don't want to be stupid enough to be vulnerable to let them know what's going on behind the scenes.
No.
That's
No,
not-
because
that's where a lot of people fail, too.
right, because then they
that's
get
a whole other
and
conversation.
you don't realize too, your
they
audience.
could try to use the leverage on you.
Well, their audience, and then am I going to make payroll? Like you,
Well, maybe I should start looking for another job.
Exactly,
So,
and that's
yeah,
the last
keeping
thing
that private
because
is real
it costs you
important.
more money to replace people, especially when you put the time in to train them. And that's the other thing too, if you can build a true foundation of loyal, happy employees, and maybe it costs you a little bit more, you save so much in the long run, and that foundation is key.
You know,
I think so.
last night my daughter came home from work and she said, they open the restaurant on Sundays now, and they have no managers who want to work on Sundays. So I said,
Step up.
So no, they go about their business. And she was talking about having fun with the guys in the kitchen. I'm like, is it a whole Spanish crew? She goes, yeah. I said, how do they work when the bosses aren't there? And she goes, better. They're more fun, they're more loose, still do the same great job. They seem to, because there's no boss around. So the music's a little louder and the fun's a little funner, but it was so for a 17-year-old to recognize that was pretty cool.
That's I think we reference that as sometimes the bird shit effect.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough too, right? Because we're talking about the stresses and all that. When you run a team, you still, when you're under the gun and the pressure, right? Like you said, every Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is, you have to make that payroll. That's what's as you grow too, the bigger you get, that's what's really on your mind, right? It's like, okay, payroll is coming.
And every time you hire somebody,
it's another one. So, and I think what's really important, because you said something, about fun, and it's also creating that environment to make people do that. But as an owner, right, I'm getting to the point that thankfully, that my hard work is starting to pay off where I can delegate, right? Where it's things, so if I can create an environment, I have an idea, I can kind of hand it off, and the idea will come to fruition. So I think that's an important, because for the longest time, I wanted to be the fun place, a good environment, you decorate for the holidays and you acknowledge breakfast on Fridays, things like that. But it doesn't always pan out that way.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect world. So, I think having a team helps with that, having people, do that. But, in the very beginning, it's not easy. And I got to tell you what, it also took me, we're going on 26 will be 11 years in business. I always say that we're really like 5 years, right? Because I didn't really get serious and kick up until about 5 years, 6 years ago at this point. And you see the change in that. But I think there's something to say too. It just it takes time. Everything takes time. Well, and you gotta be honest.
Get to the last two questions.
Let me ask you, all this background leads right in. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? So
I think BrookHill in general, we're on a rapid growth right now. That's like we're pushing harder than we ever have. And as far as personally on the business, I'll speak on the business. I think we're going to be at a halfway point, at a goal, and then I think come the near future. But again, we don't know. I love my customers very much, but we are BrookHill might look to partner or merge with a larger company of size to help continuously improve our infrastructure.
You would accept a buyout.
Yeah, listen, in our industry, it's pretty.
Never know.
In the security industry, it's
but you never
commonplace. But you want to operate for the best interest of the employees and the customers. You see what happens.
I think though, Mark, it's interesting you said, because I talked to somebody the other day, and it's where you want to be might not necessarily be where you end up.
No, of course not. But we just like to, hear your vision. And I hear half of you say, we want to build this thing up, we want to make it real, and the other half says, it really would be nice if I could build up some big equity.
Yeah, and that's the truth. And the other half of me too is saying, well, you know what, maybe at the level I'm at now with the stresses I have, maybe in 5 years I can actually step away a little bit more, and let the business kind of operate and still grow at its pace. So, really don't know. But right now it is growth, and it's just improving the way we do things for people, our clients, and it's really the service is the biggest thing for us. So we're implementing a lot of systems and procedures. So that's really a big
service is a key.
All right, last question. You can have dinner with anyone, living or dead. Who would it be and why?
Living or dead.
Living or dead.
That's a question. That's a real question right there.
Don't look to Mark. He's not answering it for you.
Who would I have? That's a good one. I don't know, because
you got to answer.
Yeah, I know we do. I don't want to divert it, but the people I have are pretty damn strong in my life right now. I don't know. You know what? Let's put it this way: if it's not anything to do with
It's
business or anything. How about this? I'd bring back both of my grandmothers.
Okay.
I would sit down with them.
Have a nice Italian meal with grandmas.
And I tell them everything that's going on, and they probably go back at 6 feet under because they'd be like, I don't know how the hell you do it. But no, they were very proud. They were always there because this falls on another 2 seconds on that, and cut me off whenever. Because when I was back in the high school, phase, I think grandparents see differently than the parents do.
Yeah.
And my one grandparent on my mother's side, and in particular, she knew kind of who I was. Right. I wasn't a troubled kid, but I just wasn't. It wasn't happening. So I think that would make her very proud because she always did tell me, like, under the table, she'd be like, you could do it. You don't have to go to. So I think that would be important for me.
All
That's
right.
great.
We're a little over. Look into the camera and tell us where people can reach you.
You can reach us. I live on Long Island, so come find me there. But no, as far as social media, I'm all over Instagram, Facebook. You can find us there. You could search BrookHill NY. That's our Instagram handle. We don't have too much else going on from there. We're on LinkedIn, and you could also
phone number.
Reach out. Yeah. Phone number for us.
Yeah.
The phone number for us actually my direct line 516-800-9033. That'll bring you right to me.
Mark, how can we
Mark
help
Simpson, Sem Holdings, semholdings.com, 917-414-4027. We handle all outsourced loss prevention across the entire country.
I am Eddie Pods, your host. You can reach me at eddiepods@gmail.com, and it's IE, or 631-334-8587 if you need someone to come in to see your team before you go to that big trade show and make sure you get the most ROI. Have me come in. I have a nice checklist for you. It's been real. It's been great. See you next time.